All right, hello. I'm going to give you a quick rundown on how to use the massing tools. Massing is kind of similar to Format, sort of like SketchUp, any of those 3D type programs. It's really similar. On the Massing and Site tab, first thing you need to do in order to see a mass, because by default it's turned off, is click on this little Show Mass, and you should see the light bulb yellow. That means you can now see masses if they're drawn there. There's none here right now. I'm going to go to the default 3D view, and I have nothing drawn. There's a couple of ways to draw masses. You can do an in-place mass, which means it's in this project, or you can use another environment, which is new conceptual mass environment, and it looks something like this, which has a weird fuzzy gray background. You draw your mass here and then you have to load it into your project. I'm not going to use that one. This one is good for some things, but not everything. Same with this one. So let's just use the in-place mass. So you can either create an in-place mass of your own, or you can place mass objects. Usually there's none loaded. I went to the place mass. And if there's none in your file already, if you just go down to mass folder, there's all sorts of different shapes pre-created, but you know, you're not going to probably use those. You probably want to always create your own anyway. So I'm not going to use that. I'm going to do an in-place mass. I'm going to call this one Mass 1. You can name it whatever you want. Once you're in this environment, your tabs across the top here change. You're in the massing environment. And the first thing you want to do is let's try and draw something. Let's start with something as simple as a rectangle. So I'm going to pick that. And if you come down here and this rectangle highlights, that's the working plane. You can see it's on level 1 right now just by default. You can also go over to the properties over in the right here. Work plane is level 1. So it's going to draw on that surface whatever I want to draw. So I'm going to click and draw a rectangle. There's 11 meters by 7.8 meters. If I go and grab that modify arrow, I can hover over the whole thing. It's 4 lines, a chain of lines. If I press tab, I could pick just one, but I want all of them. So I'm going to grab the whole thing. Those 4 little circles are just telling me I've got this whole closed object. And at this point, I can create a form. It's smart enough to say, hey, you've got a closed shape. Do you want to create a form? Or if you go to the down arrow, instead of a solid form, you could do a void. But I'm going to do a solid, which is just create form. By default, it extrudes straight up 4 meters. This is called a gizmo, this red, blue, greeny thing. I could change the height by clicking on that temporary dimension if I wanted. Or I could manually drag. I'm going to drag in that blue axis and change the height. Or I could click on that top surface and I could drag on one of these axes and make it lean. And I could push it back. So what I'm doing there is making a shape that's leaning over. If I finish the mass, it stops and there it is. There's my mass. Kind of a leaning over building shape. With it selected, you get grab handles. So you could pull and do, some things with it. Right now, if you look at it, I've just dragged it below the ground level. But if I want to do more to that shape, I'll have to go back into Edit in Place. Now I'm back into this and it'll highlight surfaces. There's a whole surface, an edge, or a point. All can do different things. If I took this whole surface I could bring that up. If I take just that edge, I'm going to drag it out. Okay, so it's pretty easy to distort whatever you've got. Nice. There's a beautiful building shape. So I'm going to finish that. All right, I want this building to kind of lean out a little bit more on all four sides. So I'm going to grab that edge and drag that guy out. See? All right, I'm still in the editing of that shape. Now I want to kind of carve into this where, if this was my building, I want to have kind of like a covered entrance. So I'm going to go back to create, and I'll use another rectangle. And I'm going to, that lit up there, but I'm going to just draw a rectangle right here like this. That's a rectangle. It's up here because that was what it was highlighting. So in this view, you can't really tell. I don't want it there, so I'm going to delete it. I'm going to go back to this, and what it was doing was it was drawing on a face. I don't want it to do that. I want it to draw on a work plane. So I'm going to click that button, and I want it to draw on level 1. That's the placement plane. Now I'm down here. Okay, so there is a rectangle. I want, oh, my building's going below the level. That's okay. If I select that rectangle right now, I could click create form and it makes another kind of cube. Oh, it's not in my building, so I'm just going to drag it into, oops. I'm going to make that project into that other shape I have there. I'll just select the whole thing. And I'm going to move it so it's poking into that other solid I have. All right, this is a solid right now. I just did create form and it's a solid. If I finish this, that is the shape I have. The whole thing is one piece right now. I wanted it actually to take a chunk out of the first one, so I'm going to go into edit shape. I'm tabbing, click this guy. It was a solid. I hit create form and it created the solid. I want it to be a void, which means it's going to subtract. So over in the properties, I've changed my mind. I want to make it a void. Now it worked. See how it cut a hole in it? So it did a subtract. See, I can still find all that. If I finish shape right now, I have a building with a kind of a ledge in there. The next thing you can do with massing objects is you can change them into actual building objects. What I mean by that is I could go up here to wall by face, pick that face, and it's put a wall on it. See that? Wall by face. If you look in your properties, it's taking your actual wall elements. I could take this brick one and make that a brick wall. It makes this funny dithery thing because it's showing a mass as well as a building object. I could make the top part a roof. It's just using a generic roof. Create roof. I could do the whole building that way. You can also use curtain system. Right now it's using a certain specific size curtain system, but that's fine. I could pick this side and I'm going to pick that one as well. Create system. Boom. Nice curtain wall building. Interesting shape. My massing shape is still showing, which is why it's making that funny kind of weird pattern. If you were done, you could just turn off the massing, and now I've got a beautiful building. All right, that's pretty basic. I'm going to show the massing objects again. Start another one, mass 2, doesn't matter the name. So that was basically taking a closed shape, I used a rectangle, and creating a form. You don't have to use rectangles. You could draw whatever shape you want. Select it, create form, change the height or whatever. All right, the next tool in the massing, in place mass, new guy, is if you have, it's called a sweep or a swept blend. So that's where you're going to have a path. So I'm going to give myself just a nice round path. That's a line. And I'm going to put a point on the end of that line. So this is a point. Bleep, put it there at the end. And what a point does is it gives you working planes you can work on. If you click on it, there's a nice working plane perpendicular to the end of that line. So with that point selected, I'm going to just take a circle, draw it, and it drew the circle perpendicular to the line. If I select all that stuff, Revit says, okay, I can do something with that. Create form. And it said, yeah, you must want to make a tube, a water slide. So that's called a sweep. It's an object, a closed shape following a path. Fun. You can do another sweep, only this one's called a swept blend. I'll use my arc again as a path. I like arcs. I'm going to put a point on both ends, one there and one there. Select the point to set that drawing plane. I'm going to start with a circle like the other one, 2 meter circle. Then I'm going to click on the other point, and I want to draw a rectangle on that surface. Okay, so I've got a rectangle and a circle and an arc. Create form, and it did all of the math for me. It went from a round circle along my path and then switched itself into the rectangle. Perfect. Yeah, okay, so you may not think that's going to be a building, but you could do this. I'm going to start with a nice square building. And you know, if you drank too much coffee, it's hard to get it the exact same size. So I'm going to click on this one and make it 10,000. And then click on that one and make it 10,000. So you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to select it, create form. It's only 4 meters. I want it to be 30,000, 30 meters. Okay, so it's a multi-story building. Great. It's not very exciting. So what I want to do right now is take that top plane, and I've got all these tools in modify, so I want to scale the top plane a little bit. Oops, I didn't do it. This gizmo is pulling along the axis gizmo. I want to do the scale. If you look down at the bottom, it says click to enter origin. So I'm going to go from that corner. Click to enter drag point, and then I'm going to scale the top. So I made the top smaller. Nice. So it's now kind of a pointy building. Still not that exciting. I want to now select that top, and in the modified tools I'm going to use rotate from here, and I'm just going to give it a 25-degree twist. Beautiful. So now I have a twisty tower. That's how they design all of those. I could finish, call that a building, but you can do a lot more to it. So if I finish that, there's so much more you can do. If I go into my level markers, or my elevation, there's my twisty building, and I only have 2 level markers here. If I had a whole bunch of more levels, I could put floors on each level and create a building. I've got a YouTube video on that one. So we'll move on. So we'll do more of those. Loft. Loft is similar to a blend, except blending along a path, it takes different levels and will loft different shapes. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go down here where my levels are, and I'm going to create a couple of more levels, just so I have 4 levels. Okay, in 3D you don't notice them too much, they're all over the place, don't worry. Alright, I'm going to go to the top view of my cube, so I'm still in a 3D view, I'm just looking straight down. And I want to start a new in-place mass, and this one I'm going to use a rectangle, and you can see here I'm placing it on level 1, so I'm just going to draw level 1 like that. Then I'm going to go get another rectangle and change that one to level 2, and I'm going to stagger it, so I think you can see what I'm doing here. Level 4, and I'm going to draw that one. I'll bring it back like that. Doesn't look very exciting from the top, but if I go to one of the corners of the cube, it's 3 rectangles, different shapes, all at different heights. So now if I select all 3 of them, Revit says, yep, you can create a form, and it does that. Nice. So those are massing. These things can all be manipulated a lot more. There's tons of things you can do to them, but this is sort of your basics of massing. If we get time later, we can do a lot more. There's a couple nice PDFs I've put in massing in Site, so you can do a lot more to that. And they're kind of weird semi-transparent things. If you want to give them a material like I showed in the FAR example, I just go into edit in place, and I could select that whole thing, and over in the properties you can give it a material. Most files come with a default massing already made, so there's a default roof and it's purple. I like to make them semi-transparent. Click OK, and there's a purple one. Finish. If I wanted to make this shape another color, you can create those. If you go to manage, you can just open up the materials. There's the roof one. I'm just going to create a new one. Down here I'm going to create new material. There it is. I'm going to rename this guy and call it default red mass. I don't know. I'm going to pick the brightest red I can get and make it 50, almost about 50%. I just created the color there. Now if I go into this one, edit in place, and select it, I can go and assign my new red mass to that shape. And that's how you do that. You can create all the colors you want. And that is how I ended up with this. That's topple surface with green grass. There's a purple shape, purple with red, da 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 da, on and on and on. And these are just stacked massing shapes. Okay, that's it. Thanks.